7 years later, here I am celebrating 3 years of marriage with my now wife, who I met in church on a Good Friday service. And all that time I had to take to develop myself into becoming the husband I am today. And so I can look back and I can laugh, I can read comments, and I can have a good, blissful heart about it because it made me into the man I am today. And I had to choose to go through all the ignorance, the self reflection, the brokenness that I had to endure. I would choose it every single time. From that moment on, I found myself in the most lowest place I would ever find my life. I know I could never hit that rock bottom again because I was completely broken. I had everything I ever wanted. I had all the materialistic things that most people in their prime of their youth would want. And so you would want money, you'd want status, you would want respect, you would want loyalty, you would want all these material things, and how they would actualize themselves is through you would want a car, you would want a nice apartment, you'd want a good job and benefits. And then so it would seem that life would be made. And to have that experience 7 years ago has always taught me that I can never find any sense of completion in this world. That was never meant to complete me. And even though my wife is amazing, we're talking about 3 years of being together, starting off a journey so fresh and so new, I know she will never be able to complete me. No one will be able to complete me unless it's the Lord himself. And so if you understand a lot of what I was sharing in the story, a lot of my mistakes, a lot of my ignorance came from my own selfishness. And someone said it best of, if she was a witch, you were a vampire. And I was definitely looking to bleed dry someone that I could take advantage of. And I think that's the twist in the story. I think that's the irony part. Now, when you talk about a witch, if you're waiting for someone's head to go 360 and then chop off your hair and slit the chicken's throat on a pentagram, then I'm sorry, you're in for a rude awakening. Because the same way darkness doesn't always exude itself in that manner, when you're talking about godly things, they don't always exude themselves in walking on water, healing the blind. And so when you look for a supernatural physical experience, you're limiting what the spiritual world actually looks like and what you're giving access to. And I promise you, as a pastor's kid, I was by the book, to the book, and I didn't believe in any of that. And one of the little small details that I didn't want to plague and try to keep in the video as concise as possible is that there were many revelations given to me throughout the relationship of the spiritual practices being put in place. For example, the only one I'll mention in this is there was a young woman. She was a prophetess. She didn't claim to be, but she would always give prophecy, and they were very accurate. She would have dreams and visions, but I trusted her because she was very humble about her gift. She didn't go around trying to monetize, I'm a prophet. She would keep it low key. And so we're having lunch with her husband, me and my ex-fiance, and she told us this dream that she had about how the enemy has a hand in her womb. She saw a hand that was creeping in her womb, and she was just praying very fervently. She gave us a book to help understand spiritually what would be taking place, unbeknownst to the natural eye. And she was like, the enemy wants this baby. There's a hand on this baby, and they want it. It's not God. And I remember hearing that, and I wasn't really too sure what that meant. But of course, that hit me like a ton of bricks of, I'm not seeing what my eyes of who I truly am. And you want to believe the best story and avoid any type of accountability because it's you. How bad can I be? And I am the worst of the worst. I am the chief sinner, in fact. I am the vampire. I am the bloodsucker. I am the most greediest and most selfish person I know. And because of that, I know that I need God more than anything. I know I need the Lord each day in my marriage. And because of those 5 years in between, about 4 years in between of meeting my wife, I had to commit to a lifestyle of repentance. Repentance wasn't really a thing where I was just like, well, God, I'm kind of sorry I did all of that. I'm sorry that I never saw that you were the one who loved me. It was played out on an everyday basis because when it came down to going to work, still having classes, living my life after all those turning events, I found myself deeply mistrusting God. It was hard for me to trust a God who allowed me to go through that, who didn't give me any type of inkling or waking up, but he opposes the proud. And I was so proud in myself. I had no sense of humility. There was no sense of me that was like, man, maybe you're better off not. I was so intoxicated with my own story that I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't see that God was giving me this rightful opportunity in private to be able to say, I'm wilding, I'm bugging, I need to take 2 steps back. But instead, I took 2 steps forward and went even more face deep. I went deeper into darkness. And because how dark it is, I have no sight. I have no one near me to help tell me, wow, the path is dark, until I started getting humbled. It wasn't until the humbling process came. And so, rebuilding from those canon of events, now I'm taking each day to make these deposits in myself because I am on empty. And I remember I was sitting in the living room and I would just clutch the Bible. I remember I had this IKEA sofa that was just really low to the floor, and I would just hold my Bible and I would read Psalms and I would be crying. I would be crying because I was like, God, what is this? What do you have me in right now? Because it's not making any sense. And I would pray and I would want some type of mental and emotional breakthrough, and it didn't come. It wasn't until I went to the gym one morning with my brother, because he was helping me rebuild this life. And it was 5 a.m., 5:30. And I was still processing the fact that I was supposed to have twins, but now my nephew was born the same time these twins were supposed to come into this world. Now I have nothing, and I see my nephew come into the world. And he always felt close to my heart because of that. It's like, wow, I was supposed to have one of you. And so I'm at the gym 5:30 in the morning, and God just, his voice came so loud, it echoed in my mind, in my heart, of you need to be in here more than you think, more than just for your body, but you need to be disciplining your flesh. You see, throughout this whole time, throughout this crazy year, a little bit over a year, I was allowing my flesh and his desires to run rampant. My belly was my God, and I always had a palate for the world. And so even thinking about dating in the church, the reason why I went outside the church was because I never felt like it scratched that itch. I wanted something a little bit more fine, a woman who would wear a dress a little bit shorter, a little bit more creative, a little bit more mysterious. And because of that palette, I had a palette for the world. And it reminded myself of Samson. Why don't you get a nice Israelite girl? The Israelite girls don't be getting down like that. They don't get down like that. I want a foreign mommy. I want someone a little different. And me and my own palette was my own destruction, just like Samson. And I want so many, for the men watching this, I want you to know God's daughters are precious. And that the palette that you have for the world would never compare to what God could have for you. And so rebuilding this, learning about my flesh and how to actually steward and cultivate it, not only has it helped me build a really good body that I can look in the mirror and be confident and raise and boost how I see myself and how others see me, but it also taught me how to say no to myself. When I think I am so deserving, when I think I've worked enough, and it sounds so trivial and it sounds so small. I worked so hard enough to get a piece of cake that I went to the gym, I did a run, I could eat a cookie. It sounds so small, but in reality, it's the small things that cause big ripples. And one thing I've learned about the enemy is that he's not trying to get you big game really small. He's playing the long game. He wants to catch you 15 years from now, 20 years from now. And that starts all in the small compromises that you're willing to make. And so if you're willing to just give a little bit of edge here, oh man, it's just a cookie. That cookie is just an entryway of always saying yes to your flesh. And it strings you along, it breadcrumbs you. Before you know it, you have spent years and months getting farther and farther away of saying no to your flesh and yes to your spirit. And now it's quenched. The pool has dried up and you don't even recognize yourself anymore. You used to be someone who was active, who would walk around, get their steps, be joyful and lighthearted, but the world has turned your heart cold. You used to be someone who would turn to God and be hopeful and have faith, but as situations come and has pressed on your toes, you have to show up now. And so now you defend yourself. The Lord is no longer your defender. You used to be someone who would want more for themselves, but dreaming seems to be childish and useless. And so you reverted to these new fleshly tendencies that just serve you in the moment and forfeit any purpose for the future. And so my rebuild, those 4 or 5 years, I took a year off dating. I took time away to really understand what are my desires. I cannot trust myself around women. I don't trust women, and I don't trust myself because I've been hurt people. So how can I put myself in proximity to someone else being hurt? I'm gonna only hurt them. I was mature enough to know that, right? And so in that rebuilding, taking a year off dating, recommitting to my abstinence journey, I went on to be abstinent for over 3 years until again meeting my wife, right? I did have a slip up that broke the perfect 4 or 5 years. That's definitely another story time. And if you don't believe what I share in that one, y'all see. So I recommitting to my abstinence journey, working and focusing on my health, getting into the word, getting reacclimating getting reacclimated to community. Not just attending church, not just going back to Bible study, not just hanging around people talking about sports, going around community, confessing my sins, even the smallest of ones, the pornographic urges, the images in my mind, always putting myself out in front of the ledge so that I don't have to ever be publicly humiliated again. And so in this lifestyle, it created the daily deposit. And it's the same system that I've helped countless times with my clients, being able to help them transform and rewire their identity. And it does start with the identity piece because of who you are is what you'll do. And what you do is the results you'll have. And so I want, and I'll be completely transparent. My 180 story is very inspiring, right? I went from completely ignorant, trying to take someone advantage. They took advantage of me. Then finding out I'm not even having all that craziness has cultivated and birthed the blessing of my marriage now. And some of you follow my wife. If you're a black woman with natural hair, you know who my wife is. All for it. And so that type of blessing, someone so amazing, so blessed, she had a transformation. In brokenness, there's purpose. And so from my brokenness has birthed a system that has been able to free others. And so now I help you elude all that time of stress, all the thinking and confusion and the loops that you're stuck in that you don't even see in yourself. You think you're not going to the gym or taking care of your health because you don't have time, and you convinced yourself of that. In reality, you don't see yourself as worth it. You know that you should. You know that it's good for you. But at the end of the day, when you have so many priorities, so much noise in your mind, how could you focus on you? No one else is focused on you. But if you don't handle it, who will? And so you have a breach of trust. And each time you break that trust with yourself, you string yourself farther and farther along of actually making a change. Before you know it, here's the diagnosis. Before you know it, here's the verdict. Before you know it, you're getting humble and humiliated so that God can bring you low, so he could be the one to bring you high. And so no matter what you've seen in life, you've got the promotion, you've got the job, you're increasing in life, but you're declining in your spirit. This is what this is for. This system is created not to just change your body, but change your heart and your mind. And so from myself, taking the years of experience that I've had, making that transformation, 7 years now of perfecting and refining this, you have the opportunity to do the same. And so if you think you are a good fit, if you know that you're committed to want to learn from someone like myself, who's been through the fire, but now has been on the other side of cultivating what a blessing actually looks like and wanting to get to that blessed place, whether you are in the broken part or wanting that blessing, we'll take the time out to see how we can do that. If you're a good fit, I'm going to drop a link in the description. Fill it out. It is very candid. It's very upfront. Well, how much is this system? Invest. How much is the investment? All of it. And I will let you know it does come at a sacrifice. It's either you will be sacrificing energy or money. And you always have to sacrifice at least two of those if you want results in a good manner of time. If you're going to sacrifice time, that means you're going to take more energy, less money. So you're going to be taking a lot of time and energy. If you sacrifice money, it'll take less time, but it also will take energy. You can't really escape the energy part, as you can tell. But the more energy you put, you might take less time, might need more money. There you go. But it is an investment. It is a sacrifice. And if you are willing to take your time, the one thing that you can never get back, and put it in the right places and get the proper alignment, you won't have to struggle with, do you want it bad enough? The effort, the willpower, those are not a question. And so you can start seeing the fruits that God has always intended you to have.